The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Cavallero Industries building as Isabel Morgan gathered the last of the contract files from her desk. At 23, she'd worked as an executive secretary for 6 months, and every single day felt like walking through a minefield. The corporate world was cutthroat, but nothing compared to the undercurrent of danger that seemed to pulse through the building's marble halls. She didn't know why Vincent Cavallero had taken such an interest in her. The CEO rarely descended from his penthouse office, yet lately his dark eyes followed her every movement during board meetings. His attention was a physical thing, heavy, possessive, suffocating. Working late again, Miss Morgan? Isabel's fingers froze on a manila folder. She didn't need to turn around to know who stood in her office doorway. Vincent Cavallero's voice was like smoke and whiskey, smooth, intoxicating, and dangerous. "Just finishing up the quarterly reports, Mr. Cavallero," she said, keeping her voice steady as she turned to face him. He was devastatingly handsome in the way that predators often were. Sharp jawline, perfectly tailored three-piece suit, dark hair slicked back to reveal a face that belonged on magazine covers. But his eyes, coal-black and bottomless, held something that made her instinct scream. You work too hard. He stepped into her office, and suddenly the spacious room felt like a cage. A beautiful young woman like yourself should be enjoying life. Let me take you to dinner. It wasn't a question. It never was with men like Vincent Cavallero. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Cavallero, but I have plans tonight, Isabel lied, clutching her folder like a shield. Something flickered in his eyes, displeasure, maybe anger, but his smile remained perfectly polished. Another time, then, soon. He left without waiting for a response, and Isabel released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her hands trembled as she shoved files into her bag. She needed to leave. Now, the parking garage was nearly empty when she finally made it to her car. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows between the concrete pillars. Her heels echoed too loudly in the cavernous space as she hurried toward her beat-up Honda Civic. She was fumbling with her keys when she felt it, that prickling sensation of being watched. Miss Morgan. Isabel spun around. 3 men in expensive suits emerged from behind a black SUV. She recognized one of them, Marco, Vincent's head of security. The other 2 were strangers, but their intent was written clearly in their cold expressions. "Mr. Cavallero would like you to reconsider his dinner invitation," Marco said, moving to block her path to her car. "I said I had plans." Isabel's voice came out stronger than she felt. She gripped her keys between her fingers, the way her self-defense instructor had taught her. "Mr. Cavallero doesn't like being refused." Marco took another step forward. "He's decided you'll be joining him tonight, whether you're willing or not. He wants you, Miss Morgan. And what Vincent Cavallero wants, he gets." Terror spiked through her veins. This wasn't a corporate intimidation tactic. This was an abduction. Isabel ran. She didn't think, just bolted toward the stairwell exit. Her heels slowed her down, so she kicked them off mid-stride. The men shouted behind her, their footsteps thundering across the concrete. She burst through the stairwell door and took the stairs 2 at a time, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might explode. She could hear them behind her, gaining ground. She was only 1 floor from the street exit when a hand grabbed her arm. "Enough!" Marco yanked her backward, his grip bruising. "You're only making this harder on yourself." "Let me go." Isabel screamed, scratching at his face with her free hand. She landed a solid hit across his cheek, drawing blood. Marco backhanded her, and pain exploded across her face. She tasted copper on her tongue. "Bitch!" he snarled, dragging her down the stairs. The other 2 men flanked them, cutting off any escape route. They were halfway down the final flight when the temperature in the stairwell suddenly dropped. The fluorescent lights flickered and buzzed. Isabel felt something shift in the air, something primal and ancient that raised every hair on her body. Then she heard it, a growl that didn't sound remotely human. The man on Marco's left turned just as something massive and dark slammed into him. He went flying, crashing into the concrete wall with a sickening crunch. His body slumped to the ground, motionless. "What the fuck?" The second man reached for his gun, but he never got the chance to draw it. A figure moved through the shadows with inhuman speed. In the stuttering light, Isabel caught glimpses. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, with eyes that glowed amber in the darkness. He grabbed the armed man by the throat and threw him down the stairs like he weighed nothing. Marco released Isabel and pulled his own weapon, but his hands shook. "Stay back. I'll shoot." The stranger stepped into the light, and Isabel's breath caught. He was beautiful in a wild, untamed way that made Vincent's polished perfection seem artificial by comparison. Dark hair fell across his forehead, framing a face of harsh angles and raw masculinity. His eyes, those impossible amber eyes, fixed on Marco with predatory focus. He wore a simple black t-shirt and jeans that did nothing to hide the powerful muscles beneath. "You dare touch what's mine?" His voice was a low rumble that Isabel felt in her bones. "You're what?" Marco laughed, though it sounded hysterical. "She belongs to Vincent Cavallero. He claimed her first. She belongs to no one but herself." The stranger moved forward with fluid grace. "But I claimed her long before your boss ever laid eyes on her. She is my mate, my pack, mine to protect." "You're insane." The stranger moved. One moment he was 5 feet away. The next his hand was wrapped around Marco's wrist, crushing it until the gun clattered to the floor. Marco screamed, "Tell Cavallero," the stranger said, his voice dropping to something that sounded more animal than human, "that if he comes near her again, I will rip out his throat and bathe in his blood. This is the only warning he gets." He released Marco, who stumbled backward, cradling his broken wrist. The security chief didn't need to be told twice. He fled down the stairs, stepping over his fallen comrades in his desperation to escape. Isabel stood frozen, her back pressed against the cold concrete wall. The stranger turned to her, and those amber eyes softened from predatory to concerned. "Are you hurt?" He moved toward her slowly, like approaching a frightened animal. "Don't touch me." Isabel held up her hands, though they shook violently. What are you?" "My name is Dominic Kane." He stopped a few feet away, giving her space. "And I'm sorry you had to see that. But I couldn't let them take you. You said I was yours. Your mate." Isabel's voice rose. "I don't even know you. And what was that about claiming me? I'm not some possession." "I know." Dominic's expression turned pained. "And I'm sorry for how that sounded. Let me explain, please. But not here. This place isn't safe. Cavallero will send more men." As if to punctuate his words, Isabel heard voices echoing up from below, security radios crackling, boots on stairs. "Come with me," Dominic said, extending his hand. "I promise I won't hurt you. But we need to go now." Isabel looked at his outstretched hand, then at the stairwell door where Marco had disappeared. Vincent Cavallero wanted to abduct her, to force her into God knows what. This stranger had just saved her from that fate, even if he'd said disturbing things in the process. She took his hand. His palm was warm and callous against hers, his grip firm but gentle. He led her up the stairs instead of down, moving with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where he was going. They emerged onto the roof access, and the rain immediately soaked them both. "Do you trust me?" Dominic asked over the sound of the storm. "No," Isabel said honestly. He smiled, a brief flash of white teeth that shouldn't have been as comforting as it was. "Smart woman. But you're going to have to trust me for about 30 seconds. Before she could ask why, he scooped her into his arms and ran toward the edge of the building. Isabel screamed. They sailed through the air, the ground rushing up to meet them. She buried her face in Dominic's chest, certain they were about to die. But instead of the sickening crunch of impact, she felt him land with impossible grace on the adjacent building's roof. He didn't even stumble. "How did you?" Later, he set her down but kept one arm around her waist, guiding her across the roof. "We need to get you somewhere safe first." They descended through an access door into what appeared to be an abandoned apartment building. Dominic navigated the dark hallways without hesitation, eventually leading her to a fire escape. They climbed down to the alley below, where a black motorcycle waited. "Put this on." He handed her a helmet and leather jacket from the bike storage compartment. Isabel's dress was completely inappropriate for riding, but she managed to hike it up and climb on behind him the moment she wrapped her arms around his waist. She felt something click into place, a rightness that made no logical sense but felt undeniable nonetheless. The motorcycle roared to life, and they shot into the rainy night. They rode for nearly an hour, leaving the city behind for increasingly rural roads. By the time Dominic finally pulled up to a large cabin surrounded by forest, Isabel was soaked to the bone and shivering despite the leather jacket. "Welcome to my home," Dominic said, helping her off the bike. "It's not much, but it's safe. Cavallero won't find you here." The cabin was actually quite impressive, a modern structure of wood and glass that seemed to blend into the surrounding forest. Inside, it was warm and surprisingly luxurious, with high ceilings, comfortable furniture, and a massive stone fireplace. "There are towels in the bathroom. First door on your right," Dominic said, shrugging off his wet jacket. "And I'll find you some dry clothes. We need to talk, but let's get you warm first." Isabel nodded numbly and found the bathroom. She caught sight of herself in the mirror and gasped. Her cheek was already bruising from Marco's hit. Her makeup was smeared, and her dress was ruined. She looked like a disaster. She dried off as best she could and wrapped herself in the plush towel Dominic had mentioned. A soft knock at the door made her jump. "I'm leaving clothes outside the door," Dominic called. "Take your time." She found a pair of sweatpants with drawstring waist and an oversized t-shirt that smelled like cedar and something uniquely masculine. Uniquely Dominic. The clothes swamped her smaller frame, but they were warm and dry. When she emerged, she found Dominic standing by the fireplace, staring into the flames. He'd changed into dry clothes as well, and somehow looked even more imposing in simple jeans and a Henley that hugged his broad shoulders. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the couch. "Please." Isabel sat, though she perched on the edge, ready to run if necessary. "I want answers. All of them, starting with what you are and why you said I was your mate." Dominic turned to face her fully. Those amber eyes caught the firelight and seemed to glow. "I'm a werewolf. An alpha, to be specific. I lead a pack of about 30 wolves who live in these mountains." Isabel laughed, though it came out slightly hysterical. "Werewolves. Right. And I suppose you turn into a wolf on the full moon." "Actually, I can shift whenever I want. The full moon just makes it harder to control." He said it so matter-of-factly that Isabel's laughter died in her throat. "I know it sounds impossible, but you saw what I did in that stairwell. How I moved, how strong I was, how I jumped between buildings." She had seen those things. And deep down, some instinctive part of her had recognized that he was other, not human, not entirely. "Prove it," she whispered. Dominic held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "Don't be afraid." He stepped back, and then his body began to change. It wasn't the Hollywood horror movie transformation she'd expected, all cracking bones and screaming. Instead, it was fluid, almost graceful. His form blurred and shifted, and within seconds, a massive wolf stood where Dominic had been. The wolf was enormous, easily the size of a small horse. Its fur was dark gray, almost black, with silver highlights. But the eyes were the same, that striking amber that held far too much intelligence for any animal. Isabel pressed herself against the back of the couch, her heart racing. The wolf took a tentative step forward, then another. It moved slowly, carefully, until it stood directly in front of her. Then it lowered its head and placed it on her knee. Without thinking, Isabel reached out and touched the thick fur. It was softer than she expected, and warm. The wolf made a sound that was almost a purr, leaning into her touch. "You're real," she breathed. The wolf stepped back, and the transformation happened in reverse. Dominic stood before her again, slightly out of breath, but otherwise unharmed. "I'm real," he confirmed, sitting on the coffee table across from her. "And so is what I feel for you. The mate thing." "Yes." Dominic leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. "In wolf culture, we have true mates, people whose souls are bound to ours. I can't explain the mechanism of it, only that when you meet your mate, you know. Every instinct in your body recognizes them." "And you think I'm your mate?" Isabel wasn't sure how to feel about that. Since when? Since the first time I saw you, 3 months ago. Dominic's voice softened. You were having lunch in the park near your office building. You were feeding the pigeons and laughing at their antics. The sun was in your hair and you looked so alive, so free. And everything in me just knew. Isabel remembered that day. She'd been having a particularly stressful week, and the lunch break had been a rare moment of peace. You've been watching me? Protecting you, Dominic corrected. I followed you to work and back. Made sure you got home safely. I wanted to introduce myself properly, to court you the right way. But then I noticed Cavaliero's interest in you. The way his men started following you. I realized you were in danger. From Vincent. Vincent Cavaliero isn't just a corporate CEO. Dominic said grimly. He's the head of the most powerful mafia family on the East Coast. He's dangerous, ruthless, and he doesn't take no for an answer. When he decided he wanted you, I knew I had to act. Isabel's mind reeled. Her boss was a mafia kingpin. A werewolf had been stalking, protecting her for months. And apparently, she was fated to be some alpha wolf's mate. This is insane, she said, pressing her hands to her temples. This morning I was just a secretary. Now I'm apparently caught between a mobster and a werewolf who both think they own me. I don't think I own you, Dominic said firmly. The mate bond doesn't work that way. It's not about possession. It's about partnership. Equals. You have every right to reject it. Reject me. I would never force you into anything. But Vincent will. Yes. Dominic's jaw clenched. Vincent sees you as a prize to be won. Something beautiful to add to his collection. He won't stop until he has you, or I kill him. Kill him. Isabel's eyes widened. You can't just. He tried to have you kidnapped tonight, Isabel. Dominic's voice turned hard. What do you think he planned to do with you? Take you to dinner and then politely drive you home when you said no again? Men like Vincent Cavaliero don't ask. They take. Isabel knew he was right. She'd seen it in Marco's eyes, heard it in his words. Vincent had decided she belonged to him, and he would have done whatever it took to make that happen. So what now? She asked quietly. I can't go back to my apartment. I can't go to work. Vincent will send his men after me again. You stay here, Dominic said. With me, my pack will protect you. This territory is ours, and no human, not even one with Cavaliero's resources, can breach it without us knowing. You want me to just move in with you? Live in the woods with a pack of werewolves. I want you to be safe. Dominic reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His thumb traced over her knuckles in a gesture that was somehow both comforting and intimate. I know this is overwhelming. I know you have no reason to trust me. But I swear on my pack, on my life, that I will never hurt you. And I won't let Cavaliero hurt you either. Isabel looked down at their joined hands. She should be terrified. She should be demanding he take her to the police, to a hospital, to anywhere but here. But instead, she felt safe. For the first time since Vincent Cavaliero had first turned his obsessive attention on her, she felt like she could breathe. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll stay. For now. The smile that broke across Dominic's face was radiant. Thank you for trusting me even a little. He showed her to a guest room, spacious and comfortable, with its own bathroom and a large window overlooking the forest. Rest, he said. We'll figure everything out in the morning. And Isabel, she turned back to look at him. I'm glad you're safe, he said softly. I've been terrified for months that something would happen to you before I could protect you. After he left, Isabel lay in the comfortable bed and stared at the ceiling. Her life had turned completely upside down in a matter of hours. She was hiding in a werewolf's cabin, running from a mafia boss who wanted to possess her, and apparently connected by fate to an alpha shifter who claimed she was his mate. It should have felt like a nightmare. But as she drifted off to sleep, surrounded by Dominic's scent and the sound of the forest outside, all she felt was strange, inexplicable sense of peace. She woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee and bacon. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all came rushing back. She found Dominic in the kitchen, cooking breakfast with practiced ease. "Morning," he said, glancing over his shoulder with a smile. "I hope you like pancakes. I tend to make too much food, pack habit. Pancakes are great." Isabel slid onto a bar stool at the kitchen island, suddenly ravenous. "Thank you for everything." They ate in companionable silence for a while before Dominic spoke again. "I need to tell you some things about pack life, and about what it means that you're my mate. I'm listening. First, you should know that while you're here, you're under pack protection. That's sacred among wolves. No one in my pack would ever harm you." He poured them both more coffee. "Second, the mate bond. It's not complete unless both parties accept it. Right now, I feel it pulling me toward you. But you're human, so you might not feel anything yet." "Actually," Isabel said slowly, "I do feel something. I don't know if it's the mate bond, or just, I don't know. But when I'm near you, I feel calmer, safer. And your scent," she blushed. "That sounds weird, but your scent is comforting." Dominic's eyes darkened with something that looked like hope and hunger combined. "That's the bond beginning to form. It means your soul recognizes mine, even if your mind is still catching up. What happens if I accept it? Fully, we would become bonded mates. You would become part of my pack, though you'd remain human unless, well, there are ways for humans to become wolves, but that's a discussion for later." He reached across the counter and took her hand again, seeming unable to help himself. "We would be connected in ways that are hard to explain. I would always know if you were in danger. You'd be able to call on the pack's strength, and we'd be partners in every sense of the word." "That's a lot," Isabel said. "It is, which is why I'm not asking you to decide now, or even soon." Dominic squeezed her hand gently. "I've had months to process this. You've had hours. Take all the time you need." A howl echoed to the forest, and Dominic's head snapped up. Another howl answered, then another. His expression turned serious. "The pack is calling," he said. "There's a threat nearby. Stay here, lock the doors. I'll be back as soon as I can." "Is it Vincent?" Isabel's heart raced. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." He was already moving toward the door. "Isabel, I need you to promise me you'll stay inside, no matter what you hear or see. I promise." He shifted as he ran out the door, his clothes shredding as his wolf form took over. Isabel watched him disappear into the trees, followed by several other wolves emerging from the forest. She locked the door and tried to calm her racing heart. She was safe. Dominic would protect her. The pack would protect her. The wait was agonizing. Isabel paced the cabin, jumping at every sound. An hour passed. Then two. She was starting to panic when she finally heard movement outside. "Isabel, it's me." Dominic's voice called. "Open the door." She unlocked it to find him standing there in a pair of sweatpants he must have stashed somewhere, covered in dirt and what looked like blood. But he was grinning. "We caught 3 of Cavaliero's men at the territory border," he said. "They were trying to track your scent. We persuaded them to leave." "Persuaded?" "They're alive," Dominic assured her. "Terrified, but alive. And they'll report back to Cavaliero that you're protected by something he can't fight with guns and money." "That won't stop him," Isabel said quietly. "Vincent doesn't give up. Ever. Neither do I." Dominic stepped closer, and despite the dirt and blood, Isabel found herself drawn to him. "And I have something he doesn't." "What's that?" "You." His hand came up to cup her cheek, careful of the bruise Marco had left. "You chose to come here. To trust me, at least a little. That means everything." Isabel leaned into his touch without thinking. "I do trust you. I don't know why, but I do. Maybe it's the mate bond, or maybe you're just different. Better." "I'm not better," Dominic said. "I'm a killer, Isabel. I've done terrible things to protect my pack. But I would never, ever hurt you. And I'll spend every day proving that if you let me." She reached up and covered his hand with hers. "I think I'm starting to believe that." His eyes flashed amber. "Can I kiss you? Please? I've been dreaming about it for months." Instead of answering, Isabel rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but then something ignited between them. Dominic's arms came around her waist, pulling her closer, and Isabel's hands tangled in his hair. The mate bond sang through her, a rightness that made her entire body feel alive. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. "You're everything," he whispered. "Everything I've ever wanted." The next few days fell into a pattern. Dominic showed Isabel around the territory, introduced her to some of his pack, all in human form, all respectful and welcoming. She learned about werewolf culture, about the complex pack dynamics, about the threats they face from hunters and other supernatural creatures. And every night, Dominic held her while she slept, his arms a fortress against the nightmares of what Vincent might have done to her. But the peace couldn't last. On the fourth day, Dominic came back from a patrol with grave news. "Cavaliero's made a move," he said, his jaw tight. "He's put a bounty on you. $500,000 to whoever brings you to him alive." $500,000? Isabel's blood ran cold. "He's insane. He's obsessed." Dominic pulled her close. "But it doesn't change anything. You're still safe here. No bounty hunter is getting past my pack." But that night, everything changed. Isabel woke to chaos, howls and snarls, the sound of fighting. She ran to a window and saw wolves battling in the moonlight. But these weren't just Dominic's pack. There were others, huge and savage, with glowing red eyes. "Dominic!" she screamed. The door burst open, and he was there, blood on his face but alive. "We need to go. Now!" Someone hired a pack of rogues, wolves without honor. They're attacking for the bounty. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the back door, but they didn't make it. A massive wolf crashed through the window, showering them with glass. It was bigger than any wolf she'd seen, its fur matted and scarred, its eyes burning crimson. "Get behind me!" Dominic snarled, already shifting. The fight was brutal. Dominic was strong, but the rogue wolf was vicious, fighting with the desperation of someone with nothing to lose. They tore at each other, blood flying, and Isabel screamed when the rogue's claws raked across Dominic's side. But then something happened. Isabel felt a surge of power unlike anything she'd ever experienced. It flooded through her, hot and wild, and suddenly she was moving without conscious thought. She grabbed a piece of broken glass from the floor and lunged at the rogue wolf, stabbing it in the eye. The wolf howled and recoiled, giving Dominic the opening he needed. He went for the throat, and it was over in seconds. The rogue wolf lay dead, and Dominic shifted back, his wounds already beginning to heal. He stared at Isabel in amazement. "How did you... that power you used? That was pack magic. But you're human." "I don't know," Isabel said, looking at her hands. They were still glowing faintly with golden light. I couldn't let it hurt you." And something inside me woke up. Dominic pulled her into his arms, heedless of his wounds. "The bond," he breathed. "It's completing itself. You're becoming mine as much as I'm yours. Your soul is accepting the mate bond." Outside, the sounds of fighting were dying down. The pack had driven off the rogues. But Isabel knew this wasn't over. Vincent would keep sending threats until he got what he wanted. "We have to end this," she said firmly. "I can't keep hiding while you and your pack fight my battles. We need to face Vincent directly." "Absolutely not," Dominic said. "You're not going anywhere near him. He wants me, right? So let's use that." Isabel pulled back to look Dominic in the eye. "We set a trap. I'll be the bait. And when he comes for me, you and the pack will be waiting. It's too dangerous. Everything is dangerous now." Isabel's voice rose. "How many of your pack were hurt tonight fighting for me? How many more will be injured or killed if we don't end this? I won't let people suffer because Vincent Cavallero is obsessed with me." Dominic looked like he wanted to argue, but slowly, reluctantly, he nodded. "We'll plan it carefully, every detail. And if anything goes wrong, if you're in any danger, I'm pulling you out immediately." "Agreed." They spent the next day planning. Isabel would send Vincent a message. She wanted to meet him, to talk. She would choose a location in neutral territory. close enough to Dominic's land that the pack could respond quickly, but not so close that Vincent would suspect a trap. The message was sent, and Vincent's response came within an hour. He agreed to meet her at an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city, neutral ground. But he wanted her to come alone. "He'll bring his men anyway," Dominic said as they prepared. "He's too paranoid to ever truly be alone. So we bring yours." Isabel checked the wire she was wearing. Dominic wanted to hear everything that happened. "I can do this." "I know you can." Dominic cupped her face in his hands. "But I still hate it. Every instinct in me is screaming to lock you away somewhere safe and never let you out." "That's the alpha in you talking," Isabel said with a small smile. "But I'm not a possession to be locked away. I'm your mate, your equal. Let me help end this." He kissed her, deep and desperate. "When this is over," he said against her lips, "I'm going to spend a week in bed with you, just reminding myself that you're safe. I'll hold you to that." The warehouse was exactly as creepy as she'd expected. All shadows and rust and broken windows. Isabel walked in alone, her footsteps echoing off the concrete floor. She could feel Dominic nearby, hidden with his pack in the surrounding darkness. That knowledge gave her courage. "Miss Morgan." Vincent Cavallero stepped out of the shadows, immaculate as always in a designer suit. But there was something feral in his eyes now, something unhinged. "I'm so pleased you've finally seen reason." "I haven't seen reason," Isabel said, keeping her voice steady. "I've seen what you really are, a monster who thinks he can own people." Vincent's smile didn't waver. Strong words from a woman standing in an abandoned warehouse with no one protect her. "Where's your pet wolf, Isabel? Did you finally realize he could never give you what I can?" "He gives me everything you never could." Isabel shot back. "Respect. Choice. Real protection. Not the false security of a gilded cage." "He's poisoned you against me." Vincent moved closer, and Isabel saw his men emerging from the shadows. At least a dozen of them, all armed. "But that's all right. I'll have time to recondition you, to help you understand that you belong to me." "I belong to myself," Isabel said. "And I belong to Dominic Kane, Alpha of the Shadow Ridge Pack. And he's here, Vincent, right now. You walked into our trap." Vincent's eyes widened a split second before the wolves attacked. They came from every direction, massive shapes of fur and fawn, moving with supernatural speed. Vincent's men tried to fight, tried to shoot, but guns were useless against werewolves who could dodge bullets and heal from anything short of silver. Dominic himself went straight for Vincent, his wolf form a terrifying sight of rage and protective fury. But Vincent pulled a silver knife from his jacket. He'd come prepared. "Did you think I wouldn't research your kind?" Vincent snarled, slashing at Dominic. "I know your weaknesses, beast." The silver blade cut deep, and Dominic yelped in pain. Silver wounds couldn't heal the way normal ones did. Isabel screamed and ran toward them without thinking. That golden power surged through her again, stronger this time, and she felt something fundamental shift inside her. Her bones didn't break. Her body didn't contort. But she felt the wolf spirit wake fully within her, merging with her human soul. The mate bond completed in a blaze of golden light, and suddenly she could feel Dominic's pain as her own, could sense his fear for her, his love. She grabbed Vincent's wrist as he raised the knife for another strike. The power flowing through her made her strong. Not as strong as a born wolf, but strong enough. She twisted his arm, and the knife clattered to the floor. "You can't have me," she said, her voice carrying the resonance of pack magic. "I am claimed. I am protected, and you will never touch me again." Dominic shifted back to human form, his wound still bleeding, but no longer life-threatening. He stood beside Isabel, his hand finding hers. Together, they faced Vincent. "Your men are defeated," Dominic said, gesturing to where the pack had subdued all of Vincent's guards without killing them. "And you're surrounded by wolves who would very much like to tear you apart. You have two choices. Leave now, leave the city, and never come near Isabel again. Or die here. Choose wisely." Vincent looked around at the wolves, at Isabel standing tall beside her mate, and for the first time, fear flickered in his dark eyes. "This isn't over," he hissed, backing toward the exit. You think you can just walk away from me? I own this city. I'll destroy everything you care about. Dominic moved faster than Vincent could track, slamming him against the warehouse wall. His hand wrapped around Vincent's throat, not quite crushing but close. Listen carefully, he growled, his eyes burning amber. I am an alpha werewolf. I have killed men far more dangerous than you, without losing a moment's sleep. The only reason you're still breathing is because my mate has a kind heart. But if you ever, and I mean ever, come near her again, if you so much as think her name, I will hunt you down. I will find you wherever you hide. And I will make your death so slow, so agonizing, that you'll beg for mercy that will never come. He released Vincent, who collapsed to his knees, gasping. Now run, before I change my mind. Vincent stumbled to his feet and fled, his footsteps echoing as he ran into the night. His men, those who were conscious, followed as quickly as their injuries allowed. When the warehouse was empty, except for the pack, Dominic turned to Isabel. His expression was a mixture of awe, pride, and lingering fear. You awakened the wolf spirit, he said softly, reaching out to touch her face. I felt it through the bond. You're not fully turned, but you're not entirely human anymore either. You're something in between, something rare. I can feel it, Isabel said, wonder in her voice. I can feel the pack, all of them, like they're part of me now. She looked around at the assembled wolves, some still in wolf form, others shifted back to human. Thank you, all of you, for protecting me, for accepting me. An older man with silver-streaked hair stepped forward. This was Marcus, Dominic's second in command. You're our alpha's mate, he said with a warm smile. That makes you our alpha female. It's an honor to protect you. The pack howled in agreement, the sound echoing through the warehouse and out into the night. It was a song of victory, of family, of acceptance. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Isabel felt truly safe. They returned to the cabin as dawn broke over the mountains. Dominic's silver wound had been treated with a special salve that one of the pack healer provided, and though it would scar, it would heal. He refused to let Isabel out of his sight, keeping her close as they walked through the forest. I thought I was going to lose you, he admitted quietly as they reached the cabin. When Vincent pulled that knife, when I saw him so close to you, but you didn't lose me. Isabel took his hand and pressed it over her heart. I'm right here, and I'm not going anywhere. Inside the cabin, they finally allowed themselves to breathe. The threat was over. Vincent Caballero had fled the city. Marcus had confirmed it through the pack's network of informants. He'd abandoned his business empire and disappeared, too terrified to face the wrath of an entire werewolf pack. What happens now? Isabel asked as they stood in the living room, the morning sun streaming through the windows. Now! Dominic pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her waist. Now we live. You decide what you want. Whether you want to complete the transformation and become fully wolf, or stay as you are. Whether you want to stay with the pack, or return to the human world. Whatever you choose, I'll support you. Isabel thought about her old life, her tiny apartment, her job as a secretary, the loneliness she'd felt even surrounded by people. Then she thought about the pack, the forest, the sense of belonging she'd found here. And most of all, she thought about Dominic, his strength, his gentleness, the way he looked at her like she was his entire world. I want to stay, she said. With you, with the pack. This is where I belong. The smile that spread across Dominic's face was radiant. Are you sure? Because once we complete the mate bond fully, once you become part of the pack in every way, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Isabel reached up and cupped his face. You told me in the warehouse that I belong to myself and to you, but it's more than that. I choose you, Dominic, not because of some mystical bond, but because you're brave and honorable and you make me feel alive. I choose this life. I choose us. Dominic kissed her then, deep and passionate and full of promise. The mate bond sang between them, golden and perfect, sealing their souls together. When they finally broke apart, Isabel could see the wolf in his eyes, and she knew he could see it in hers too. I love you, he whispered. My mate, my equal, my everything. I love you, too, Isabel replied, feeling the truth of it in every fiber of her being. That night, on a full moon, Isabel underwent the transformation. It wasn't forced or painful. It was a choice, a gift freely given by Dominic and accepted by her. The pack gathered in a clearing, forming a circle around them as Dominic guided her through the change. It felt like coming home, like finding a part of herself she'd never known was missing. When she stood on 4 legs instead of 2, her fur silver white in the moonlight, she threw back her head and howled. The pack answered, their voices joining hers in a symphony of acceptance and joy. Dominic's wolf pressed against hers, his dark fur a perfect complement to her light. Together, they ran through the forest, faster than any human could dream of moving. The wind in her fur, the earth under her paws, the pack at her side. It was freedom in its purest form. When they returned to human form at dawn, tangled together in the cabin's bed, Isabel couldn't stop smiling. That was incredible, she breathed. I've never felt anything like that. You're a natural, Dominic said, pressing a kiss to her temple. Marcus said you move like you've been born to it. You're going to be an amazing alpha female. Alpha female, Isabel repeated, testing the words. That's going to take some getting used to. You have time. Dominic pulled her closer. We have all the time in the world now. Werewolves live much longer than humans. We'll have centuries together if we're lucky. Centuries. With Dominic. With the pack. Living free in the forest. Running under the moon. Protecting each other. It sounded like a fairy tale, but it was real. This was her life now. Weeks passed, then months. Isabel settled into pack life with surprising ease. She learned to hunt, to fight, to communicate in wolf form through body language and subtle sounds. The pack accepted her completely, looking to her for guidance alongside Dominic. Together, they were a formidable pair, his strength and her cunning, his raw power and her strategic mind. She never heard from Vincent Cavallero again. The man had vanished completely and good riddance. Sometimes, late at night, she wondered if he'd found peace somewhere, or if he was still consumed by his obsessions. But mostly, she didn't think about him at all. That chapter of her life was over. One evening, as autumn painted the forest in shades of gold and red, Isabel stood on the cabin's deck watching the sunset. Dominic came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. What are you thinking about? He asked. How different my life is now, Isabel said softly. A year ago, I was just a secretary. Ordinary. Invisible. And now I'm part of something magical. I have a family. A purpose. You were never ordinary, Dominic murmured against her neck. I saw your strength from the very first day. That's why I fell in love with you. Not just because you're my mate, but because you're remarkable all on your own. Isabel turned in his arms to face him. Thank you, she said, for saving me, for giving me this life, for loving me. Thank you for choosing me, Dominic replied, for trusting me when you had every reason not to, for being brave enough to embrace this world. They kissed as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. In the distance, wolves howled, the pack settling in for the night, safe and content in their territory. Later, as they lay in bed with moonlight streaming through the windows, Isabel traced patterns on Dominic's chest. I want to tell you something, she said quietly. Anything. I'm glad Vincent tried to take me that night. The words came out in a rush, and she felt Dominic tense beneath her, not because of what he wanted to do. That was horrible, but because it forced me out of my safe, small life. It brought me to you. And if I had to go through all that fear and danger to end up here, with you, with the pack, it was worth it. Every terrifying moment was worth it for this. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. Then he rolled him over so he was looking down at her. His eyes were bright with emotion. I spent so many nights watching you from the shadows, wishing I could protect you, wishing I could tell you what you meant to me. I was so afraid Cavallero would hurt you before I could keep you safe. But you saved yourself, Isabel. I just gave you the tools. Your courage, your strength, that's all you. We saved each other, Isabel said, pulling him down for a kiss. You saved me from Vincent. I saved you from loneliness. We're better together than we ever could have been apart. Always together, Dominic agreed, for the rest of our very long lives. Outside, the moon rose higher, full and bright. Somewhere in the forest, a wolf howled, not in warning or challenge, but in pure contentment. The pack was whole. The alpha had found his mate, and love, the kind that transcends species and defies logic, had won. Isabel Morgan was no longer just a secretary from the city. She was a wolf, an alpha female, a protector of the pack. But most importantly, she was home, and she was loved beyond measure by a male who would move heaven and earth to keep her safe. As for Vincent Cavallero, he faded into obscurity, a cautionary tale whispered in the underworld about the mob boss who tried to steal a wolf's mate and lost everything. Some said he died broke and alone. Others claimed he was still out there somewhere, broken and afraid, jumping at shadows. But none of it mattered to Isabel. That part of her life was over, buried beneath the new life she'd built. Years later, when young wolves would ask her about how she came to join the pack, Isabel would smile and tell them the truth. I was lost, and the alpha found me. I was afraid, and the pack protected me. I was alone, and love completed me. That's the power of the mate bond. It doesn't just bring two souls together. It transforms them both into something stronger than they ever could have been alone. And Dominic, standing beside her with her cubs playing at their feet, would add, the best things in life are worth fighting for, worth risking everything for. I would face 1,000 Vincent Cavalleros if it meant keeping my mate safe, because she's not just my partner. She's my heart, my soul, my everything. The pack would howl in agreement, and the sound would echo through the mountains, a song of family and love and belonging. And in that moment, Isabel would remember the terrified secretary she'd been, running for her life in a parking garage, and she would be grateful. Grateful for fear that had led to courage. Grateful for the darkness that had led to light. Grateful for the ruthless mafia boss who had inadvertently pushed her into the arms of her true mate. Because sometimes the worst moments in our lives lead us to the best things. And sometimes being hunted by a monster is exactly what we need to discover we're strong enough to run with wolves.